Hello guys and welcome. My name is Faraz, and in our last video we installed some dependencies for Ruby and programming in general. We installed MySQL database and we installed some Node.js and Yarn package managers. So today what we are going to do is to install Ruby specific dependencies and a Ruby version manager called as RbEnv, and then we'll be installing Ruby itself. So let's get going. So press yes. So we have now successfully installed all the necessary dependencies for Ruby, that is the software dependencies. Now what we need to install is a Ruby version manager itself that is going to manage the different versions of Ruby which we might be using throughout our career in Ruby. To do that, what we need to do is to clone something from GitHub called as an RbEnv. So this is the command. So we have cloned RbEnv and now we have to put it in our bash RC so that it gets initialized every time we log in. And finally, we should tell our bash RC file to evaluate this RbEnv every time it logs in. So once that is done, I'm going to restart the shell by typing the following command, that is exec followed by dollar and everything in capital that spells shell. So our bash shell has been restarted now. So RbEnv is supposed to be installed now. If I type RbEnv now, I see that it has been installed, but there are commands here and there is no such thing such as called install and anything like that. Now that is a problem. If we are not able to install something, we're not able to track something. So to do that, we need to add some extra capabilities that will be cloning from GitHub itself, and we'll be putting it in RbEnv itself. So this is the command which will help us do that. So finally, let's restart our shell once more. So now if I type RbEnv again, I see that I have got the option of installing and uninstalling different versions of Ruby. So that's all that we needed to do. Now all that is left is to install Ruby itself. So to do that, what we need to type is RbEnv install and the version of Ruby that you intend to install. So for the purposes of this course, I am planning to use Ruby 2.6.0. So I'll type 2.6.0 and I'll press enter. So RbEnv automatically goes to the Ruby repository and downloads the Ruby 2.6 version for us. Once it has downloaded it, it will go ahead and install it. And it takes around 15 minutes on an average to compile a version of Ruby. So I'll be back once it has been successfully installed. Alright guys, we see that Ruby 2.6.0 has been installed. And to prove it, let's try to run Ruby, but what happens now is going to be peculiar. If I type IRB, that is the interactive Ruby shell, I see that it shows command not found. And the reason it shows it is because we need to tell RbEnv to first rehash the version of this Ruby and then to tell it to use this version of Ruby for all our projects. So to do that, what we need to do is type RbEnv rehash and then RbEnv global 2.6.0. So what we have done now is if I type IRB now, I get a Ruby shell. And to prove to you that it is the version of Ruby that we did install, what we can do is type Ruby dash version. It shows that we have installed Ruby 2.6.0.